So if you can remember, everybody here on this call, humans are the greatest asset to a business. Yet if they're not appreciated, invested in, they feel psychologically unsafe or not properly utilized, those human beings can become your worst nightmare. So as we've seen in the last year, difficult challenges such as COVID have created heightened emotions such as fear, anxiety, stress, people wanting to change and adapt, but they all want to do it from their own comfort zone, which has created in some workplaces some unhealthy behaviors and even turnovers, and even areas where there's a lot of internal cyber threats, there's stalled leadership, there's unproductive teams as an example. So when a business gets on these patterns, I mean, how do we break out of it? Because it ends up being more stressful and ugly. So the Business MD is here to help you break those behavioral patterns and help you skill up. So we help leaders and groups to be better human beings and to modify behavior, correct fresh thinking, have better communication, be happier, and be more productive, as an example. So in the 21st century, and especially the last year, I mean, leadership and team success depends on the mode of heightening emotional intelligence and psychological health and wellness, because we need to solve together complex problems and foster cooperative relationships. So in the past, I mean, people were allowed, and it wasn't thought of. I mean, people are on autopilot sometimes. And then all of a sudden a threat shows up, such as COVID, as we saw, and then the brain center gets hijacked. So this think first, act later brain structure shuts down the perspective, and the analytical reasoning, shuts down. So we need to open our minds and shift and to gain clarity so that we still remain healthy and creative, so that we're productive in our workspaces. So the highest performing teams, folks, have one thing in common. It's called psychological safety, the belief that you won't be punished if you make a mistake. And people who have high emotional intelligence create psychological health. So this allows for that creativity and, and being able to assert yourself, and by sticking out your neck and saying, hey, I have a great idea, without feeling that I'm going to be punished for it. So the types of behaviors that you want. So another area that I'd like to cover is people have grief right now. They're having trouble. Some of them have that trouble about transitioning, that emotional transition to, hey, you know what? Not everybody wants to work remote. Sometimes technology is a problem because people want that face-to-face connection. So I hear people all the time say, when we get back to normal, I don't know what normal is. All I know is that we need to adapt. So sometimes people in the workspace are having that grief of holding on to what used to be. So I'm here to help people adapt and add value by solving human problems. So I'd like to invite you all to let's have a conversation how we can increase the psychological health and emotional intelligence in your team and your leadership. So there is my email and my phone number, my website, and I'll put it in the chat box. But thank you, Bruce, for the opportunity, and I'd love to know all of you more. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Christine. That's all a very helpful perspective. And some of it we know that we need to deal with, and other items you brought up are it's kind of news to us. So I think a number of us will be reaching out to you for more guidance in that area. But thank you for that perspective. Very good.
Thank you, Bruce.
Okay, so now for our main presentation. Mary Beth Goodman is the clinic director at the Cohen Clinic at Alaska Behavioral Health, a role she took on in January of 2020. Previously, she was clinical director and therapist working with military families and veterans her entire clinical career. Responsible for providing oversight and inspiration to our entire dedicated staff of clinicians, caregivers, and warriors. Other responsibilities include developing and monitoring measurable goals for staff, providing oversight of clinical cases, assuring quality of care, and maintaining strong relationships with staff, clients, and referral sources. Welcome, Mary Beth.
Thank you, Bruce, and welcome everybody. Happy Monday. It is such a pleasure to be here. My name is Mary Beth Goodman, and I have the privilege of being the clinic director at the Stephen A. Cohen Military Family Clinic. Some people may know us better as Anchorage Community Mental Health Services. ACMH was established in 1974 to serve the Anchorage area And we changed our name last June to reflect our growth with clinics in Fairbanks and telehealth services throughout the state. You may be aware by now that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And if you're not, well, now you do. I know that all of you are so excited for me to start screen sharing yet another PowerPoint presentation. Okay, I know you're disappointed, but I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to do that on purpose because I want to make a connection with you the best I can. And so I'm going to start by being intentional about smiling and making eye contact with you and being present through this world that we're living in today. And let's face it, we have been through an emotional time. Or as we have often been told, 2020 was an emotional roller coaster. And whether you've shifted back to work at the office or you remain working in a remote environment, or maybe you're somewhere in between, the truth is that our line between personal and professional is blurred. Learning how to navigate emotions in the workplace is now no longer optional. It is imperative. And I don't know if any of you have had this experience, but as employees return to these team environments, emotions are so fragile and they are so loud. Leaders are struggling with this delicate balance of happy and productive workplaces. I'm wondering if any of you can relate to this. This year, more than ever, workplaces have had to address the mental well-being of its employees. And I know some of you are thinking, you are paid to come to work, so you can come to work and you can leave the emotions at home. I think we need to start with debunking that myth, right? Emotions don't belong in the workplace. Well, maybe that was true in the 1950s culture, but unfortunately, that mindset is too prevalent today. And truth be told, I know I embrace it on occasion. I mean, it would be so easy if employees would just come through the door, take their emotion, take their stress, take their personal problems, put it up on a shelf, and then just sit down and be productive, happy, and drama-free, right? Wouldn't that be amazing? But that's just not where we're at. And the truth is, if we have learned anything from this last year, it's that this is a time when we are most in need of our humanity. One of the traits that defines us in our humanity is that we feel and we have emotions. It's our human emotions of compassion and empathy and passion that allow us to switch on a dime in our respective industries and deliver our services via Zoom, creating curbside takeout, applications to monitor capacity, and the list of modifications go on and on. But still, we have to take time to acknowledge that this year has left many of us exhausted, anticipating, and just an overall sense of unease in a couple different ways. It has led to employees that are overstressed and checked out. Have you ever checked out at work, simply gone through the motions? And maybe right now you're playing a phone, your video's not on, so you can be present even though you're not? And I'm joking with some of my employees that as we transition back to a full in-force work, they're going to come to work with a paper bag on their head with a sign that says, picture not available, so that they don't have to be visible at meetings. And I'm wondering how many of you have employees who are not wanting to be visible anymore. And these are the employees that we expect to impact, drive change, and make progress. They have to be visible, and we have to encourage that. So how do we do that in this emotional minefield? Well, the basic skill of mindfulness is really simple. Some people shy away from it because it sounds like we're just going to meditate, we're just going to go off and be Zen-like and breathe. And while some of that is true, the reality is mindfulness just means you are present. You are present in all you do. We are a generation of multitaskers. Even now, even though I just teased some of the people on this call about checking emails, I am confident that some of you are listening to me in the background while you eat lunch and check emails, and that's okay, but that leads to burnout. And so we're going to start with a basic exercise before we get into some of the details. And I want to introduce to you just a really easy, low-risk mindfulness exercise. And this involves our senses. The only way that we interpret the world and take in information is through our senses. So we touch things, we smell things, we taste things, we hear things, or we see things. And that's it. That's the only way that we take in information. And so sometimes we stop taking in real information or cognitive information, and we start taking information from that whirlpool of emotions and memories that just always circulates above our head. And sometimes that blocks our senses. Have you ever seen that horror movie where that young lady is like in the corner and there's chainsaws and the audience is yelling, just go out the door, but she can't see it. And it's because in that moment, fear has literally taken away her ability to see an exit. I wonder if any of you have ever felt that way at work. You can't see the end of the project. You can't see a way to succeed. Maybe this is magnified in your personal life. You can't see a solution. You can't hear what the right answers are. And so the first step to mindfulness is just basically grounding your body to your senses, opening up these pathways to make sure that you are hearing, seeing, tasting, touching, and smelling the truth of what surrounds you and not taking in information that may or may not be true in this scenario. So I'm going to invite you all to just simply close your eyes and take 2 really deep breaths. Now I want you to open your eyes and I want you to see 5 things. I see a clock in front of me. I see my desk. I see a television in the corner. I see the carpet under my feet. And I see a blue chair. Now I'm going to touch 4 things. I can feel my sweater. I can feel my face. My hands are a little bit cold. I can feel my earrings. And I'm going to feel my hair, okay? Things that are on my body that allow me to ground myself. I'm going to hear 3 things. I hear some coworkers going to lunch, hear a car behind me, and I hear the air conditioner above me. I'm going to go to my smelling. I smell this great cup of coffee I've yet to drink. And I actually smell a little bit of disinfectant. Obviously, the cleaners were in the building last night. And then I'm going to taste something. Okay, I'm going to taste some spoiled coffee that I should have washed out by now. Or that might be as simple as tasting an ice cold sip of water or putting a piece of gum in your mouth. Now that you've gone through this intentional exercise, what you've done is you've really opened up all of your senses to take in information. And so you're present in the moment. And for some of you, that might feel odd. You might all of a sudden notice that, oh, wow, these shoes really are too tight. I shouldn't have worn them today. Or, oh, it's really warm in this office. But what we've done is we've allowed our brain to block off some of those senses so that we don't have to deal with the unpleasantness. So we don't have to deal with being in the present. And so it's very important to open up your senses. In corporate culture, if this is a skill set that you teach to your employees, this might be just a quick, hey, Jessica, I'm thinking you need a high five right now. Or, hey, Tasha, I think you really need to take 5. And it's a cue that your coworker is seeing you maybe not acting intentionally or maybe responding to frustration in the workplace that isn't productive. I've really had some great luck with individuals who are in leadership positions who actually model that skill. And they might come into a meeting where there's a clear amount of frustration or a problem that needs to be solved. They sense that frustration and anxiety and maybe even isolation or depression on some of the staff. And they just go through and they actually take them through it. Wow, I see that you're in a red shirt today. I see that you've got blue glasses on. And you take your people through those sensory experiences before you get started with that meeting. So everyone is present and listening to the here and now versus taking the information from maybe that last point of conflict that maybe wasn't productive. So that's it's a grounding technique, but we call that. So now that we're all grounded, here are just some simple steps about being mindful. And remember that mindfulness is just simply about being aware and present, okay? And so being consciously present, I made the decision today that you all did not need another PowerPoint presentation. I want to consciously be as present with you as I can. If we were in a meeting room somewhere, I would be able to look at you. I'd be able to walk around the room, and I'd be able to make sure you understood that I'm really happy to be here and grateful that I have this opportunity to share with you. And sometimes that gets lost. And human beings need that. They need to know that they matter. They need to know that their presence is appreciated. And so when you are consciously present at work, you're not only aware of what's going on around you, but what's going on within you. And so you might be less reactive and a better listener. You might be less reactive and more of a problem solver. Being less reactive actually lowers heart rate, lowers anxiety. And so that's how we can really do some healthy steps about being consciously present. The second part of mindfulness at work is you actually have to do these exercises. You would not expect to run a marathon without running a few 5Ks or even a 1K or even maybe a get off the couch K before you engaged in that. So just like physical exercises train your muscle, mindfulness exercises train your brain. So that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise is something that you might want to practice in traffic when things are a little bit frustrating, when your teenager decides they're going to be a little bit teenagery today, and just to see if you can ground yourself to truly understand, hey, I need to react to what I know to be true right now versus maybe some emotional baggage that I'm carrying into this conversation. I don't know if any of you know this, but multitasking does not work. I know, shocker. Everyone's just aghast with this new information. But truly, nobody can multitask. All brain scans have shown that you can only do one thing at a time. And truly multitasking is what your brain is madly switching from one task to the next and losing data in the process. So as we talk about mindfulness in work and really lowering frustration levels, encourage doing one thing at a time. For instance, I'm giving this presentation. Well, I have my Teams messages on silence. I've turned off the ringer on my phone. I've put my personal cell phone in a drawer. I actually locked my office door because even though the sign says in a meeting, do not disturb, I know people are going to disturb. And so being a single tasker and really allocating your time to be your own is a much better way to lower your frustration levels, lower your anxiety, and increase your productivity and increase your ability to be present in the moment. That leads to sometimes you have to remind yourself to do these things. Remember, the word mindful literally means to remember. Most people who go through mindfulness training come out and they're like, oh, you know what? I really like that trick, or I really like that tip, or, oh my goodness, that would be helpful in this area of my life. But then we forget to be mindful. And the reason is actually exactly what Christine was just sharing with us. Our brain's normal default mode is to be habitually lost in our own thoughts. We're running on autopilot, right? I don't have to tell you to breathe every 60 seconds. You just do it. I don't usually have to tell people to eat. I don't usually have to tell people how to walk. We just go through life doing these things. But we do not go through life being quiet and focused and calm. And so to include those skill sets to increase our mental wellness, you actually have to practice it. And so that might mean setting a reminder on your phone. It might mean bringing a different water bottle to work. And every time you pick it up, you say, all right, I'm going to breathe. I'm going to remember I'm here. Or doing that Take 5 exercise. I've had some clients who actually schedule themselves 5 minutes every 2 hours for a mindful meeting. And all they do is they get up from their desk and they do what helps them focus. For some, it's the Take 5. For some, it's stepping out the door and breathing. But it really is just a time where your brain and your body catch up to each other. And I've had people tell me over and over, you know, Mary Beth, you are just wrong. I need to go, 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 go. I only have 8 hours at work and I'm not bringing it home and. But I urge you to remember, slowing down will speed you up. In fact, mindfulness at work, this whole concept of it seems a little hokey to some. I know, right? Imagine that, a therapist telling you that therapy is just a little hokey. But the reality is, the more you slow down and think before you act, or focus your thoughts before you respond, you're actually becoming efficient, productive, happy, resilient, and you're getting rid of self-doubt. Those are the huge things that lead to mental health issues or decreased sense of self-worth. Okay. If I told you you couldn't sleep for a week, you can't sleep for a week, right? Sleeping is not working, it's resting. So you can't rest for a week. You would kind of look at me odd. And maybe you've experienced this with a deadline or college exams, right? You would know that this is not effective. Well, the same thing can be said with just letting your body and your brain catch up to each other every now and again. Effective leaders, workers, entrepreneurs, mentally healthy people use their downtime to slow down and reflect on decisions and actions, not to regret choices they made. And that's the whole concept of mindfulness in the workplace, is getting rid of regret and getting rid of increasing thoughtful action. The other thing, then you guys are going to laugh at me. I'm the hokey therapist. That's my new title, I guess. But make stress your friend. Really? Yes, because stress is a part of your daily life. There is no way to get rid of stress in our culture. It's just not possible. There actually have been some pretty good scientific studies out of Stanford Health that have studied people who believe stress to be bad and people who believe stress to be positive. Those who believe stress to be bad for them actually showed constricted heart muscles, constricted blood vessels, whereas individuals who believe stress is an opportunity actually stayed healthy and had better heart health. So it's interesting when you think about that. But what I mean by that is, if there is a deadline coming up at work, if there is a crisis that cannot be prevented, you are going to be jumping in the stress pool and there is nothing that you can do about it. Stop, refocus your energy, and understand that, wait a minute, this opportunity of stress is going to push my creative limits. This opportunity for stress is going to make me reach out to other people in my field. This opportunity for stress is going to increase my ability to do in whatever, insert your career field there. When that challenge happens, you're going to notice your heart rate accelerates. You're going to notice your breathing accelerates. And instead of thinking about that as a bad thing, think about that as, okay, the increased blood flow is actually going to stimulate my brain. All right, stress, let's go. Let's start that brain thinking. That oxidation process is actually going to turn you into a better thinker. And I know I am Susie Sunshine. I am that positive person. It's just how I was born to be. But those simple steps of increasing mindfulness and just shifting your perspective, shifting the way that you view this situation will increase your ability to get through that situation. And then the last thing I want to talk about today before we go to some question and answer time is the concept of feeling gratitude. We as humans have a negativity bias. And what that means really is we're more likely to focus and dwell on something that's gone wrong than the things that have gone well. Wow. Probably shouldn't have called myself a hokey therapist. The whole audience now thinks I'm just weird. They don't I should have cited my degree work. I should have given them my resume. Stop. That's not true. You probably didn't even think about that until I brought it back to your attention. But we all have that predisposition to think about things in a negative way versus a positive. Well, gratitude is actually the antidote for that. And let's face it, as business owners, as supervisors, as team leaders, as employees, we have to point out the negativity of situations. You were late for work. We lost X amount of revenue. We need to generate more clientele. But simply embracing the gratitude of all of that. If you feel like you're stuck in a situation that is just hopeless, I guarantee there's at least one positive thing going on. For instance, maybe you really just don't like the line of work that you chose. Well, you are getting experience. You are learning about this field that if you hadn't chose it, you would never learn. Maybe you're in a really toxic workplace. Maybe your workplace is toxic and you're trying to figure out how to solve this. Well, you are learning what you don't enjoy working in. So when you go on that next interview, you know exactly what questions to ask to avoid toxic workplaces. It is the flipping of a lens. Instead of looking at things from the glass is half empty, it is looking at it from the glass is half full. But if you can create an attitude of generosity and gratitude, you're actually going to neutralize your brain's negativity bias, increasing its serotonin production, thus which is going to lead to some more just stabler days with our emotion, just not so many peaks and valleys. And so that's really important. Now, I want to close today by talking about what we've really done is we've really given some tips and tricks for, sorry, there's an ambulance going by. I got a little distracted there. I want to close with, we've talked about some tips and tricks with really getting through an average workplace. This is for individuals who are coming in with moderate levels of anxiety, with team dynamics who are really struggling, things of that nature. If you have a coworker who you feel needs critical response or immediate response to mental health, Tasha's actually going to post some information in the chat about how to get in touch with a mental health professional. The 1-800-273-TALK, which is our national suicide prevention lifeline. I want to leave you all with some resources as well, because let's face it, sometimes things are a little bit over our head and we can't just smile and teach mindfulness and teach some new tips in the workplace. We really do need medical professionals. And so I just want to make sure that I recognize that, right? This isn't just like infusing sunshine into the world and everything will be better. Sometimes there are instances where people need that help, and I want to make sure I leave you with that. So with all of that being said, I do want to thank you for your attention. I want to thank you for connecting with me. And I just invite you, if anyone has questions or concerns, if anyone has any interactive discussion that they'd like to have happen, please feel free to put it in the chat and we can get that going on.
Oh, thank you, Mary Beth. I don't know about you guys, but I can listen to you talk all day, I feel like. Great information. Really, I mean, you're speaking my language with the multitasking, and I definitely need to work on that. I don't see any questions in the chat or the Q&A at the moment. If anyone has something they'd like to ask Mary Beth, go ahead and put that in the chat, or I don't know if you can raise your hand here, but I can give you the ability to speak as well if preferred.
All right, it looks like someone wrote, how do you recommend approaching an employee that appears depressed? And Deborah, I so appreciate that, because here's what I would say. We have zero. If someone came in and they had just had a baby, we would immediately go to them and we would immediately say, hey, what do you need? How's your sleep? How are things going? What's going on? If someone came in and they were clutching their chest, you would say, oh my goodness, are you having a heart attack? Can I call someone for you? But yet in this culture, we really struggle with talking about mental health without stigma. And so we actually offer a course called Mental Health First Aid. And it's a wonderful course. If anyone's interested, I'm happy to connect you with that. But it really breaks down the stigma and it teaches us how to have these difficult conversations. And again, these are conversations. This isn't performance-based. So please don't misunderstand that I'm giving HR advice here. I'm just giving mental health advice here. If someone looks depressed, I'm actually going to address that head on. And I'm going to say, Deborah, you have been coming into work every day and you just don't look like yourself. Can I ask, are you feeling depressed? Those are the things that if we ask 3 times, it's proven that on that 3rd time, we're going to get the answer that they really want to give. And so please don't make the individual feel like you're cornering them and, asking them the question with knife hand. It's maybe the next day it's, Deborah, I know I asked if you were depressed yesterday. I would love to grab a cup of coffee with you on break and just chat. You just seem a little bit more stressed. Is there a way that I can take something off your shoulders? Whatever feels natural for you, but we have to get over this stigma of not asking someone how they are. Let's face it, we are now in a world of, how are you doing? No, I mean, really, how are you doing? Right? It's a different emotional world than we've ever been in. If someone were to sneeze or cough or look feverish, we would address it head on. People who look isolated, who look withdrawn, who act differently than they've looked, there's no reason we can't ask these questions. Again, not from an HR perspective, from a mental health humanity perspective. I hope that answers your question, Deborah. And then Roberta writes, we've hired a lot of people during COVID. Do you have tips for virtual team bonding and building? Oh, we've compiled so many lists here about resources. I am a stickler about video on and video off. And I joke about that paper bag, but if we weren't sticklers about it, we would have teammates who never saw each other's face. And so I actually do. Every now and again, I will absolutely say, you know what, nobody has their videos on during this meeting. In fact, I encourage you to fold laundry while we chit chat, right? And so owning the fact that if people are at home, they're probably in yoga pants and a sweatshirt, they might not have showered. We have to address that. But also saying, and not public humiliation here, but in a sidebar chat, I saw on. It is an expectation that when you're in a meeting, I see your when you're in a meeting, Roberta's folding laundry right now, so I want to applaud that. When you're in a meeting, your voice is on and you're on. I can see that you're not doing one of these, right? Because it's important, and that's mutual respect. The other thing that we've done is, again, remember, I'm a therapist. It's what I do. It's in my blood. And so we do a lot of touchy-feely stuff. The other day, we actually painted rocks. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Hope Rocks Foundation, and it's just you paint a rock and you hide it somewhere, and it's got an inspirational message. And so I had delivered to all of my employees' homes basically some acrylic paints, and then they went out back and picked up a rock. And it was fun. You have to make time, and you have to invest in your workforce. We celebrate birthdays. We do team pictures. We actually do a team picture at every milestone. We're a brand new clinic. And so when we hit 100 clients, we took a goofy picture. We support our military. So on Military Child Appreciation Day, we took a really big purple up picture. And we plan that. I don't like the idea of sideswiping employees and saying, at 2:00 today, we're having a picture. Nope, on Monday, it's like, hey, in Friday's team meeting, we're doing this. And then the other thing we do is every day before our workday, we have virtual coffee talk. Now we're hybrid, so half of us are in office and half of us are out. And it's nothing. Like, we do not talk about real things. In fact, if you talk about work, you're going to get muted. That's just the rule of our coffee talk. And it's just about, hey, what did you do this weekend? This morning I got to meet one of my coworkers' dogs because she got a new dog over the weekend. And so making some of that more natural, like what would actually occur if we were all in person. So, but again, there's so many tips and tricks out there, and I agree. It's overwhelming with all the tips and tricks, right? What other questions or concerns? And guys, thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. I really appreciate it.
Yes, great tips, Mary Beth. We will have some time afterward, I think. So if anyone wants to stay back and continue to network at the tables, we can talk about more ways and what have worked for people, like Roberta's asking. So since we don't have any other questions, I'll go ahead and turn it back to Bruce. But thanks again, Mary Beth. This has been really fun.
Thank you all so much.
Yes, Mary Beth, that was a great presentation, and something I was really admired about it is you have great personality and interaction really kind of by yourself. I mean, you're talking to a bunch of us in a virtual environment, but I don't know, you really connected well. And so, but thanks for all the great tips, and hopefully everyone's finished folding their laundry or feeding their pets or whatever. So there's some certainly good tips we can move ahead with. So again, I want to thank everyone for joining us for today's forum. Next week, May 10th, John Linnell and Kent Kohlhaas will inform members what road improvements they can expect from the 2021 construction season. Also, we have a few open committee meetings coming up over the next couple of weeks. So this Wednesday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, join the Diversity Committee for their monthly meeting, and that's a Zoom meeting from 3:30 until 4:30. All members are welcome to attend and share ideas to advance our diversity mission. And then next Tuesday, the Young Professionals Group will host their monthly meeting from 4 to 5 p.m. via Zoom. And then Wednesday, check out the Ambassador Council monthly meeting, also on Zoom, from 4 to 5 p.m. And this energetic group of people work together to maintain contact with other Anchorage Chamber members while helping to promote the Anchorage Chamber as a whole. So if you're interested in being an ambassador, please email tabitha@anchoragechamber.org. For more information and to RSVP for any of these events and meetings, please visit anchoragechamber.org. And lastly, Citywide Cleanup Week kicked off this past weekend with an event presented by Matson at Westchester Lagoon with other locations sprinkled around Anchorage. I want to thank all of you for all the volunteers that came out on a beautiful day on May 1 there at Westchester Lagoon. Our cleanup continues for the entire month of May. So this Saturday, May 8th, is the annual Citywide Cleanup Super Sweepers event. Over 45 schools have signed up to clean their area and teach students about how to care for their city. For details and to register your cleanup team, visit citywidecleanup.org. And now for door prizes. So each winner will receive an email with instructions on how to redeem. So the first prize is a free registration to an upcoming Make It Monday forum, courtesy of Stu Graham of MTA. And the winner is Sandra Tompkins of Float 49. So congratulations, Sandra, and we'll see you at a future event. And lastly, 2 trolley tickets, courtesy of Anchorage Trolley Tours. And those go to Jamie Carr of Home Instead. And Jamie, congratulations and thank you to Anchorage Trolley Tours and to Stu Graham for donating items for our Make It Monday forum giveaways. So if you'd like to donate a virtual door prize, please email tasha@anchoragechamber.org. So from all of us at the Anchorage Chamber of Commerce, thank you very much for joining us. Stay tuned. We're hoping to make an announcement before the end of the month of our first face-to-face Make It Monday luncheon. So it's been over a year now, but anyway, we'll have more information coming out soon. So with that, have a great week.